Like to welcome everybody this afternoon. I know people are still entering the room. As we get started, I just want to kind of give an overview. We're going to talk about building connections to transform public safety and prevent incarceration through the lens of community violence intervention and violence prevention without police. We'll talk about transformative justice, ending police harm, ending mass incarceration, which is always a focus, and healing justice. So this is our fifth in this series. We have some interesting speakers for you today, and we hope you enjoy the program. So I'd like to do some introductions. We have a speaker from Force Detroit that does community violence intervention. They focus on advocacy, implementation, criminal justice reform, among other things. Zoe is with us today, and they are the Director of Public Health and Safety. We also have Charles and Erica from Advanced Peace Lansing. And Advanced Peace is dedicated to ending cyclical and retaliatory gun violence in American urban neighborhoods. Charles is the strategy manager for Advanced Peace. He's responsible for oversight, implementation, and monitoring of their initiative. He's passionate about ending the disparate and unequal treatment experienced by those who are underserved in our communities. He believes that advanced peace in local communities, that being incorporated in local communities is an essential asset in reducing cyclical and retaliatory gun violence. He has several degrees, dual bachelor's degrees from Eastern. He has a JD from the University of Toledo College of Law. Spent the last 28 years dedicated as a UNISERV director for the MEA, advocating on behalf of educators. And has extensive experience and knowledge in the areas of strategic planning, advocacy, civil rights, mentoring, coaching, and other areas. So Zoe and Charles will be our primary speakers. When we move to breakout rooms, we also have Erica from Advanced Peace, who has lots of experience thinking about funding and other kinds of things that may be interesting to our group. So that'll be a third breakout room option. Certainly want to give a thank you to our organizers, Emergent Justice, the Michigan Collaboration to End Mass Incarceration, the Detroit Justice Center, the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion, and Friends of Restorative Justice. I want to go over our community agreements with everyone, and if you'd like to add any to the chat, please feel free to do so. As we work through this process, we'd like for everyone to respect everyone and bring your authentic self. Be present and engage as needed, verbally through the chat, reactions, etc. We're going to engage in flexibility and flow as we did. We'd like everyone to be open-minded and to respect the differences of opinions that we will inevitably have. We're not always going to agree, and that's fine. We need you to step up and engage if you feel that you should and you haven't, and step back if you feel like you're taking up too much space. We'd like to make sure there's only one person on the mic at a time, and ask that you take care of yourself. We won't have any scheduled breaks, but feel free to step away, go off camera as you need. If there's anything else anybody would like to add, please do so in the chat. Otherwise, let's talk about our goals. So one of the goals of this entire process is to build a supportive community with peers across the state and to create a platform for rich strategy discussions. We find that there are often much more shallow discussions, and we'd like to enter this space and certainly have deeper discussions. We want to share resources that allow us to learn together, strengthen power, and expand alternatives. Lots of times organizations find that they are spending time reinventing the wheel when there are others out there who can share resources with them. We want to align strategies and tactics from local and national practitioners. And we want to connect local level experience with state policy discussions to influence things across the state of Michigan, not just in our particular areas. So, as mentioned before, these are our two speakers that we're looking forward to having. And we'll also be able to talk about budget advocacy. Others involved in this discussion include My Cure, Safe and Just
It,
Michigan.
I'm going to cover that after Charles speaks. So
All right,
you
in
can go ahead
that
and stop
case,
share and let Charles and do
absolutely.
his magic.
All right, thank you so much.
Charles, you're muted for us.
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to share this space with you today, talk about this important work, in particular, share about advanced peace. You know, the overarching thing that we have in common as we're all sharing this space is we're all concerned about what is community violence intervention. And we all understand that there are unique ways that we have to apply different measures and strategies to try to interact with the difficult people, or people who are in difficult circumstances that we might encounter. I think when you look at the from a wholesale standpoint, the contributions that are being made by community violence intervention groups cannot actually really be quantified. You know, we use evidence, we use different strategies, but I don't think it's quantified necessarily in the impact that it has. Today, I want to share with you about our unique program which is Advanced Peace. Are we able to see our PowerPoint? Give me a little time. So Advanced Peace was a program that was started in 2011 by Devon Bogan. Devon is a native of Lansing, Michigan, and how it ended up in Lansing is that we had a significant increase in gun violence. It doubled by numbers that we had seen in decades. So the community was asking for assistance. The police, with all due respect to them, weren't able to manage some of the issues that we were having. So the opportunity for Advanced Peace to get into the Lansing area kind of propped up by default. And I'm finding that the more we're doing this work, that's often how it happens. And those default situations are when people in communities that are not considered underserved have these types of things happening in their neighborhood, and they realize that it doesn't just apply to underserved neighborhoods. Can we go to our next slide, please? And as you can see, what our focus is it's intense mentorship is one of the key components to the type of work that we're doing with our fellowship. And obviously, the biggest motivator when you look on the legislative side or you look on the public side is how much does it impact lives. So we're promoting, and what our program does is it saves money. It protects folks, and it allows us to do work on a community level. One of the important aspects of our work, and I think that was mentioned by Dr. Jackson when she was doing her opening, is our programs are unique because we don't have a traditional relationship with law enforcement. When I have conversations and just in terms of I'll talk to you a little bit about the model a little bit further. But one of the things is I may have an interaction as the program manager with public or with the law enforcement, but the people that work with us, the people that are working on the ground with our fellows, it's important that they don't have that type of relationship, because what's most important to us is making sure that we're credible messengers. Would you please go to the next slide? So what our fellowship looks like, it's an 18-month Peacemaker Fellowship. And what it does is to provide these transformative opportunities for our fellows, and who they work with are neighborhood change agents, what we characterize as neighborhood change agents, or NCAs. And what those NCAs do is they work with those folks directly on a daily basis. It requires a number of interactions throughout the day. They provide support to the fellows in terms of just daily life. So to just kind of give you a example, we have three NCAs. They work with 5 fellows apiece. And with those fellows, they will make a minimum of 3 interactions with them today. That's by a phone call, text message, or social media, just to interact, checking in on them, The team actually has meetings, different things like that, set an agenda, have conversations specifically about their fellows, and establish strategies by which they can utilize to help support them. And I think some of the terminology that's generally used is almost like having another child, or it's having a brother. It's more than just the general mentor. And as part of this, one of the things we discuss is that we're just a part of an ecosystem. We work with the public, we work private stakeholders, we work with the community. So it takes everybody to make certain things happen. So for our fellows, in terms of the fellowship, they have to get access to other services. And sometimes they have no idea. And many of you would know that some of the people that we're working with are so underserved, they don't realize some of the services that might even be available to them. Can we go to the next slide, please? So if you look at our approach, we use a evidence-based six evidence-based approaches with a seven touch point model. And what we do is it focuses on street outreach and mentoring. That's one of the components of the NCA work as well, because that allows for us to identify other peoples that might be a part of the fellowship. Intensive case management, life skills training, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the thing I mentioned before. And then helping them and assisting them with subsidized employment. In relation to the 7 touch points, let me highlight those a little more specifically. If you look at what will happen is a NCA will work with the fellow to establish life goals. And through the life map, and what they'll do is that it can be as simple as getting a driver's license or making sure they have a state ID. Part of that might also involve with just getting them access to these other services that I mentioned, and also with respect to the navigating getting jobs and things like that. You'll see 2 of the other components that I just want to highlight, which is the elder circle. And I'll just say I generally give this presentation for about 2 hours, so I feel very limited in my time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But regard to back to the elder circles, what that is that senior mentors, older gentlemen who will come in and volunteer and kind of give insight about intergenerational things that have happened, and focus on things that experiences they've had, and try to help the fellows as they navigate. And you hope that they establish enough of a relationship that they might help them with securing employment and things like that. I think the most important aspect of our work is the transformative travel, however. And what that would involve is that it would be 2 individuals who are engaged in retaliatory and cyclical gun violence against each other, per se, or so to speak, or they're part of 2 different groups. Depending on where you are, it could be a gang. In our case, it's more like quick clicks. And what they would do is they would be a part of the fellowship, and ultimately the goal is to take them on a trip, and it may be a trip outside the country, where they are actually in an environment together, not in an environment where they can be subject to scrutiny, and they get an opportunity to kind of realize that maybe we have more in common than we really thought. What the ultimate goal is that when they come back, they still may run with the same individuals. However, when they see that person that they've been working with in the program, they'll say, well, that's off limits. We're not going to kill him today, because the people that we're working with, the population we're working with, are the ones that are actual shooters. Please go to the next slide. Erica.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. All right, really quick, I'm just going to jump in here. I'm Erica Lynn. I'm a senior project coordinator for Advanced Peace Lansing, and the community stakeholders, the advisory board, community liaison work, community partnerships. That's a lot of where I come in. That's a big part of my role. I'm born and raised in Lansing. I was a part of the community stakeholder group prior to my position with MPHI to bring Advanced Peace here. So being a part of now the actual implementation of the work, I'm really just leveraging all of the relationships that I've built over my life, over my professional career, over founding a small grassroots nonprofit in Lansing focused on gun violence work. And so Part of our model is working with the community. We're not trying to come into a space and not acknowledge and honor all of the people that have already been doing the work, unpaid, unacknowledged, for years, right? And so when we came in, we really were intentional about forming this community stakeholders group. And of course, with any type of funding and sustainability, you have to have that cross-sector representation. So we've got local government, residents, nonprofits, business sector, criminal justice agencies, social, service providers. But I'm really intentional about trying to make sure all of them, as many as possible, are residents. They live and or work in our community. So we meet monthly. We communicate via email a lot in between those formal meetings to talk about all of the different stakeholder type conversations about what the initiative is doing, what updates we have. Examples of their involvement for us is they supported me in our community asset mapping early on as we were bringing the initiative here. They helped me develop some of our community surveys, i.e. literally the questions, how we worded certain questions, what are the things that you as a community member would want us to know? So not necessarily what should we be asking, you as a resident, what would you want to know? Those are the questions we need to be asking. And then just general ongoing participation and input during both the planning and now, our implementation phase. Next to this is just currently our group right now is really robust. We've got representation from our local school district. We've got, our financial empowerment center, which is an arm of our local government. We've got nonprofits. We've got our community police departments, sergeant. So these are individuals that, yes, it's a job, but most of them, like I said, either live and or work in our community. So they have a little bit more of an investment. So when they come into these meetings, it's not necessarily just looking at the agenda, it's really being intentional about the safety of their children, their family, their loved ones, and being really focused on what comes out of these meetings, not just being checking a box, but really impactful to the work and feeding back into our street outreach team and what they're doing. The other arm in the community stakeholder side of things, we have what's called a local advisory board or team. And this is something we're actually forming now that we're really fully into our implementation phase. So this is a really different group. The other team is very higher level, general overview, lower stakes type environment. This group is comprised of stakeholders that have very specific skill sets and access to resources that will contribute to the success of the street outreach's team success. So that's very different in being their conversations are going to be a little bit different, still maintaining confidentiality of our fellows, of our program, our recipients. But their conversations might be more or less talking about the issues that we're seeing, in the neighborhoods, because they're intended to be individuals that are either working in this realm or they're working adjacent to this realm. So their skill sets are a little bit different. That means that they are often having some crossover with the demographic they're working with and the demographic we're either working with or we're targeting. And so they're made up of members who have committed to us that they're going to use their time, talents, treasures when they're called upon, and we need their support if we have an issue, if we have a barrier, we have a blockage, we have something that's going on, it's a challenge. Let's come together at least once a month, very agenda-based, very action-oriented. Those meetings are not meetings to just meet. It's almost like a football huddle break. When we get done, everybody's got a job, everybody's got a role, and we have something to do. So by the next meeting, we can talk about what we did as a group. So that's something that I'm putting together now that we're in the implementation phase. And I'll put it back over to you, Charles. You might be on mute.
My apologies. I think what Erica highlights is what I was attempting to emphasize early on. The ecosystem is what we're talking about, is having other people involved, other people being accountable, and people can take they can take solace in knowing that we're a part of the solution, not so much part of the problem. I'll just throw this in. You know, I didn't get into the work because I had the same experiences as the people I necessarily work with. I've seen it, I've experienced certain things, but we all have a lane that we can play. So don't assume that when you're working with folks that you turn them away because everybody has something that they contribute. You know, in that particular our case, and that's why I like where the slide is that, you know, at the end of the day, our program lives and dies with the NCAs. Erica mentioned about the confidentiality. She mentioned about having credible messengers. I think you'll find as you continue to explore the work that a lot of the people that are actually doing the work and who are the most effective are people who have already experienced the trauma. So in some cases, it's like pushing people back into the same type of trauma that they were already experiencing. That's why it's so important to have those aspects of the cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that. Let me transition. Next slide. And I wanted to highlight, as I start to close, you know, what people look for at the end of the day is they look for results. And so we have been fortunate, I think, seeing what our results have been when based on the model, what they expect is that the goal is after a 3-year period, there will be a 40% reduction in cyclical and gun violence matters. In our case, we have been blessed that according to our statistics, and like I said, we use evidence-based approach. We also have a data system which we are able to track and collect information with respect to our fellows. What we believe is that we have a 65% reduction by the end of September. We're waiting for the new results to come out. But when you look at that and that's in a 2-year period, if you look at that compared to others, you know, that's quite successful. And what I wanted to share with you before we end is that we are expanding, fortunately, and what you'll see is where we are already in the southwest part of Lansing primarily. Over the course of the next year, we're going to be expanding into the southeast, which we've already started that. We're expanding into the north, and now we also have established a relationship at the high school. So we'll also have our other of our fellows and our peacekeepers working in the district, working with different groups, working to get referrals and working to find individuals that can be part of our program.
Thank you so much, Charles. I think, do we want to go on to Zoe next and then hold questions till the end? I haven't seen anything in the chat at this time. And thinking about how Force Detroit words might spur some questions in terms of comparisons between the two.
All right. And before we do that, Lisa, I've got a quick update as a transition. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen before we kick it over to Zoe. So first of all, I want to thank Charles and Zoe, the crews at Advanced Peace, Lansing, and Force Detroit, because what you're doing, so much on the conversation around public safety, you know, the politicians, they're saying cops, prisons, and you're saying there are other ways to keep our communities safe and things that police can't do. And prevent the kind of harm that prisons and such can create. So I really, really appreciate your work. And you heard from Charles, and you'll probably hear from Zoe when he comes up, that the work that these community violence intervention groups do is vital, but it's relationship based. This isn't like you turn it on, you turn it off. You've got to build this. You've got to build the trust. You got to build the teams. And Charles mentioned that this is data driven, this is evidence based. What we see nationwide is groups will get this going. They'll get some funders coming on. It'll get in the media for a little bit. But then sometimes the funders, they turn that spigot off and they stop funding this work. And so Force Detroit and others have been part of a coalition that's coming together right now. You know, in a week or two, Governor Gret Whitmer is going to drop her budget recommendations. And we know that it is important not just to have the one-time funding for the kind of work that Force Detroit and Advanced Peace are doing, but sustainable funding. So one of these budget recommendations is to start building a sustainable funding stream through the budget process. And I don't want to take any more spotlight off our amazing presenters, but I did want to take this as a beat to encourage you all to, one, take a look at these budget recommendations. Two, if you individually or if you're part of an organization, as an organization, can sign on. There's a sign-on letter you can access through that link. And then three, to share folks, because in these next 2 weeks before the budget hits public, the more pressure we can do to help try to include this funding in the governor's budget, the stronger we'll be. And then there's a long legislative cycle to try to make the changes we need to get the final budget to include funding for things like community violence intervention. So that's all I got. I'm going to let Lisa take it from here and introduce Duan.
Thank you, thank you. So Zoe from Force Detroit is up next and is going to talk about how they work through community violence intervention in Detroit. Excited to hear about it.
Hey, how you all doing?
Well, thank you.
We have established advocacy efforts for implementation. Originally, our advocacy efforts were centered around the Bill Peace Report. That Bill Peace Report advocated for community-based solutions that were evidence-based and evidence-informed. We believe that a multi-layered approach would be effective, so we advocated for that. A few things. I go to our report. When you look at the Bill Peace Report, what our work was centered, the foundation of our work. 1 second. You look at the foundation of our work, it was centered around everyone's approach towards gun violence. And you have multiple approaches. 1 second, because it's separate from my slides.
Are you able to share your slides?
Yeah, I'm gonna share them.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. I'll go back to share screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. You can see your whole page. A little bit.
I see the table of contents and your mouse moving around over by street cred now over the table of contents.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the page. Damn it. Excuse me, I'm not a tech guy. So,
We can also see that journeys thing on the side. I don't know.
yeah, let me remove that. Okay. This is what we believe. Excuse me. Second, remove this.
If-
Pardon. There it is. What we experienced in community, we did not want to discourage anyone from having an approach. So we advocated for a multi-layered strategy to be implemented and to see what things were effective and what period of time you will start seeing results. You see this in the field because people compete for resources. This is something that has went on. This is something we attempt to discourage, competing for resources. We don't think it's one all be all strategy. We believe that different methods and strategies work for different neighborhoods, different communities. Detroit is a place that have been displaced. So oftentimes people who live in neighborhoods not actually from those neighborhoods. So we experienced a few things when we were beginning to advocate, or when we began to write this report. We experienced people who in the CBI work who have this protect victims. These are family grief support resources from powerful, tough on crime stakeholders. You have those in community. And we know we have to learn how to work with them without compromising our integrity or the integrity of what we do. And at the same time, acknowledging how violence impacts their psyche, their point of view. One of the things, as you can see on here, is something else on here. We're talking about limited leadership opportunities in victim protection. We have those who have belief in transformation. Those are the ones who do mentorship, life coaching, and other transformative experiences that reduce the likelihood of retaliation. You had our faith-based community, inspiration and hope that could be after community, that could alter community norms. These are the people who come to prayer visuals, do all that. We think it's important to partner with these individuals and create a coalition in an effective ecosystem centered around the approach to solving this. Then you have the community leaders. You have those revolutionary-minded individuals, those charismatic individuals who may speak and advocate on behalf of community when it comes to accountability. These leaders build community of volunteers that's willing to embrace and engage, inspire change makers who wouldn't otherwise know how to do it, right? Some people want to get involved, they don't know how to do it. And you have individuals who are very charismatic, who can create the community events, who can do the outreach, who can do the engagement, who can do the things that lift up the morale of the community. We believe in them as well, and we believe in a multi-tier approach and working with them. Then you have individuals, I feel I fit in this. I did 15 years in prison, came out, came back to my community, got involved in community violence intervention, and started using the techniques and the method that were useful in our demographic and geographic locations. So it's proof of transformation. Influence with peer groups to change, volunteer a part of undoing harm that they help create. I had a reputation in my community. When I came back, everybody thought I was coming back a certain type of way. I didn't come back like that. And it made people proud, and I got my whole community to come along with it. Similar to those evidence-based practices that the brothers and sisters from Advanced Peace just spoke of, we believe in mentorship as well. It's an important component. Our organization has a saying that people don't join our organization. We get adopted by their family, right? You spend so much time with them that they become family, and we understand the work. If a friend is intoxicated and a stranger snatched the keys, that person may fight that stranger. But when it's a relative, or it minimizes the risk. Now, one of the things I want to get into before I go, and I had just put this slide up before I go into some details. This is what I stand on this. And let me share my screen. Once again, forgive me because I'm not the tech guy. I'm not the
That's
tech
okay.
guy. I'm the in the field guy, so it's gonna be a little. But
Yep.
I've been telling the rest of like this some of the groups, but I've been telling the rest of the groups that this is how we leverage our stuff. So we have to leverage our work as well. When you look at the cost per shooting, homicide, non-fatal, and you look at Force Detroit, and this is just from November to January right now. This is our second quarter. You look at it, zero. Oh my goodness. I gotta go right back to it. Sorry about that, you all.
No
So
worries.
I had to take the guy with me. Did it even keep it? Yeah, there we go. If you look at it and you do the numbers, within that quarter, we stopped 2 homicides. That's 3.2 million. If you look at the non-fatals, we stopped 8 non-fatals compared to last year. That's 8.8 million. So we're looking at 12 million that we can take credit for along with some of our community members in resolving certain things. So initially we were giving and across the United States, it's always like a base 700,000. It's been more than a return on investment even within the second quarter. It was a $5 million or $4.7 million return on investment in the first quarter. So we're looking at over $15 million saved in 6 months and over 10 lives saved. Family don't have to go through trauma, right? We impacted our community. There's the impact. Now I want to go to something else. Mine's gonna be a little bit. We operate off this, and we use multi-tiered approach. We have all our stuff took down, but we take from everything that works. We will create a logic model based off of a person's experience, charisma. We will build that out with a team. Our thing is to make sure we do the strategic planning right. With the strategic planning, we can implement anything in any neighborhood and we can customize that to the neighborhood because we understand the work. When it comes to the work, one of the big things that we value is this, Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow's hierarchy gives us something to stand on. We know that one, physiological needs have to be met first for a person's mind even be right. And where our VIs operate in is safety needs. But if they're using, and this is the methods that we use with our people too, because we know this is real. If we can use the physiological needs to relationship build, we can figure out what the safety needs are. And when our brothers from Advanced Peace, they talk about fellowship, we love that. When we start looking at belonging to and love the intimate relationships and friendships, and the prestige and the feeling of accomplishments, well, those are the fellowships, those are the trips, but you can customize that to anything when you know the person's self-interest. And then we get to self-actualization, that's where the programmatic things come from. That's where you figure out what this person wants to be. That's where you start developing things. That's where the focus groups come in. That's where you start customizing things centered around your group. One thing that we're on to, we're big on structure. So we try to develop structure and implement structures even within the groups and the personalities of the individuals that we run into. Because if you don't have structure, you can't maintain peace. You will negotiate peace and it'll fail, or I don't want to say it'll fail. Something may happen complicated and you will be held accountable for having that person let their guards down. But this is some of the things you use. Now, high-risk individuals, we on the social media heavy. We've been able to really slow stuff down because the police monitor crime, we monitor disrespect. We've developed something to monitor disrespect. Everybody knows the psychological behavioral factors, and Advanced Peace gave a good rundown, so it don't make no sense just repeating the same old thing. But risk factors, 1 second. This is our neighborhood. This is our focus location. We have a crime viewer to where we can pinpoint whether it's been homicides or assaults up to a day. And we get notifications from the police. But you see these numbers, how we sectioned up in these little super small squares are blocks. These are streets. So you see how it's not in order is 1, 2, 3, and 4 all over the place. This is based off our sphere of influence. So as you can see, one, we're extremely influential, right? And we use the influence from 1 to go to 2, to go to 4, to go to 5, to go to 6, and we just got in 9. This is kind of old, as you can see, but it's been on the slide, it's been there. We service the 48228. This is something developed. We took best practices from some people, but we developed stuff naturally too, because we wanted because I know a lot of people say this is different, that is different. It is different here. In Detroit, people are not standing on corners or walking around. You know what I mean? It's a lot of displacement. People who live in neighborhoods, they're not from those neighborhoods. So it's different. The violence travels. But we identify this includes conducting outreach, gathering information, using the Detroit Crime Viewer, social media. We don't like using the term intel. We use community details. Just because we know that, that's been used in law enforcement, and we ain't got time to be explaining stuff when people are triggered. We have a discussion with a designated CVI team member, gather community details, and establish a method of contact. After that, we do a safety evaluation, reach out to our networks and our partnerships.
I'm going to give Zoe a sec to see if his connection comes back. Chuck, do you have the ability to text, or Jen?
Working on that right now, Lisa.
Thank you, thank you. Just in this brief moment, while we're working to get Zoe back, I noticed that there were a couple of questions for Advanced Peace about funding. Can you all speak for a second about the kind of funding you get? Is it primarily taxpayer funded, grants, foundations, individual contributions? Could you speak to that really quickly?
Sure, I can jump in a little bit on that, and Charles can add anything I might miss. We kind of do it both. We build our sustainability plan around the AP model. The government needs to have an investment in this. So our city, county, we seek funds from both city, county by way of an actual line item in their budget annually. We feel like we could get more of a commitment, and we're seeking that. The initial commitment was smaller on both ends. We're seeking to get that again every year. It's passed as part of public safety. It's a measure, it's an arm, it's a tentacle of public safety. So we seek that, and also both state and federal funding. Foundation money, community, things like that. It's in the peripheral. But again, honoring the fact that there's a lot of grassroots organizations out there when I think of funding strategies, there's certain pots of money that you do kind of want to leave for the smaller organizations because they can get those a little bit easier, whereas they may not have the capacity to grab that large DOJ grant, but we do. And then we can also reach back in through way of subgrantees, subcontracts, and still be able to put in money to the community into those smaller grassroots organizations. And that's part of our model. Some of our community partners, we're funding 3, one for the 3rd year in a row, and 2 others will be starting over the next 2 years to fund both of them. And they're both the nonprofit organizations locally.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's jump back to Zoe.
Okay. Thank you, and sorry about that. One of the things we had to use, like as far as a technique out here in Detroit, secure location. So what we found is when it comes to a secure location, can you see my screen?
No,
I
and you
screened
might
in.
want to turn off your camera if that helps with the connection. I'm not sure. We want to see you, but if that helps.
Okay, I'll turn it off. Yeah, that's good.
Uh-huh.
Okay, one of our things too, like we had to come up with a location to where we could secure ourselves for high-risk individuals, like really dangerous individuals. We used the airport, the Western hotel inside the airport. So we leveraged that because it's one way out, one way in. In it take like 10 minutes to get up there and 10 minutes to get out. In you can't just park and sit out there. In you basically just get your own security with the airport. And it's only 15 minutes out of the city. So all of our high risk things, we utilize the airport. That's one of our main things. And we've been heavy on relocation. We have a problem with that. For the first time, we're doing a state relocation, relocate one of our participants to another CVI organization down in Atlanta. We've been working with Marcus McAllister on that. But once we do that meetup, we do intake and a risk assessment. Intake and risk assessment has, we created receptivity metrics based off of, these are metrics that we created based off our lived experience, and they proved to be effective. We've created temperament metrics based off of our lived experience when we see certain indicators of a certain level of temperament, to where a person could go look at the risk assessment and see what I think this person is. That don't mean this person necessarily is, but it's me telling you what I think without you talking to me. We have home risk assessment from 5 to 10, from likely to highly likely. Should I be pulling up over there? We have transportation risk assessment. This is all on the same thing. Whether or not this person highly likely or unlikely of being harmed while he's with you or she's with you. And event space. Can I invite this person out to an event space? Case management, self-explanatory. We create a service plan based off of the person's potential. What do you really want? That's one of the things we ask the person. That service plan created, and then we start enrolling them in programs, and then we work on maintenance. One of the things when we're talking about intervention, we try and focus on is how are we developing? What are we doing with the ecosystem? So we use these methods of what groups, what methods do we use to prepare? What groups, what methods do we use to mitigate? What groups, what methods respond? What groups, what methods do recovery? And we build off of that when we're moving, because this thing is fluid for real. Since the pandemic, there's more guns out here than ever. It's changed human behavior. When you see a person with a mask, it's not the same way you used to feel before the pandemic. It's made our children more prone to instant gratification. Even when it comes to Ubers and vehicles, individuals don't even want to drive anymore. When it comes to the marijuana industry, the illegal narcotic trade, you used to be young, you used to start off selling weed, but now there's nothing out there. There's no underground network to where individuals can really make money. So sometimes they participate in acts of violence to get money. That's how we discussed our housing model. But here's some of our data. So we engaged 40 participants, and each 40 participants, what we're trying to show was 36 of them lived in Detroit, but as you can see, we focus on the 48228, but all of these other zip codes affect our neighborhood. So we had to go outside of our neighborhood and deal with individuals. I wouldn't put the name of their groups up here, but deal with the individuals who could affect our neighborhood based off of the social network. And if you look over here, we have every 40 social media handles. And you can see them, right? You see all 8 social media handles under there. Now, this is one of our first young participants. We hired him. We met him when he was 18. He was going downtown with like 100 guys, and they would just fight during the pandemic and all that. And we had community referrals. We call them community referrals. If my friend deal with your sister say my little brother tripping, we pull up on a sister. We use institutional referrals as well. We've developed a relationship with the prosecutor's office to where they actually have conversations with us about legal and ethical standards as far as when our VIs is out here, so that we know what we're doing just in case we get subpoenaed. We also talk to law enforcement in the mayor's office about giving us city IDs that's not attached to the law enforcement, but that's attached to the CBI program for us to be able to identify that we're doing the work, because they jumped out on me and harassed me because I had participants and I dropped them off, and I don't pull to the sidewalk. I stop in the middle of the street and let them out just so I won't get boxed in, because I'm a street dude. I want to show a few things to just show methods, if y'all don't mind. To show like this is some of the things that's working for us, like, and just to share it really, like, no. So, okay, and this is something, you see these names, this is Don and Boom. These are young men who created this slide. They created this slide based off of this. These are our participants. One second. Our participants were involved in a high-profile shooting, right? Metro Detroit News is a social media platform that shows the stuff that goes on throughout the city or whatever. This goes up because that's what I mean by intervention is evolving. And just something as simple as somebody creating a page like Metro Detroit News caused something. So you have this going on, and I got to put this at the top. It goes on. They showing it on there. It even makes it to Say Cheese and goes viral. Look at the views. When it goes viral, we go straight to the page and go to the likes. This is how we utilize social media. Who's liking? Then when we look and we see all this gray, we know these are our fellows and our participants. Now we have to go check the comments. When we check the comments, what do we see? He could have shot his mans. Okay, they just saying something. Who's liking this? Now we're going to evaluate who's liking this. Okay, now we have somebody responding to that. What was said? We see the @ right there. As soon as we see that, it's time to de-escalate. Now, I can't show the DMs, but it's time to de-escalate, right? Let me go back. This is the outreach strategy or the recruitment strategy that we utilize as well. Identifying the high-risk individuals through the referrals and the social media. Mind you, this is the young man's, this is the 18-year-old brother. This is his slide that he created. He's our, he came on as a third-party VI, but now he's a VI. Using the social media platforms, Prime and the D, family members, partners, friends, and social media, attempting to connect with at least 2 VIs to determine if you're able to mediate. He's not in a position. He has mediated. He stopped mass shootings. He's done a lot of work. He's the reason why we have all our participants in our recruitment. that's some of the methods we use. Now, a little bit about what we're doing as far as it comes to an ecosystem. And I'm
You know
gonna
what?
be
Hang on one sec. Because we want to get into our breakout rooms. And so I know we had a couple questions in the chat. I think we got to at least one of them. And certainly we want you to keep going with this. And so in the breakout rooms, folks can be in the breakout room with Force Detroit
Okay,
and
I'm gonna
ask more
stop sharing.
questions. Yeah, no worries. And we can keep going in that vein there. If we could just very quickly ask each of you so that everybody hears this, if you could very quickly, and Zoe, why don't you start with this? If there was one thing that you would say to a new organization starting, community violence intervention, what would that one piece of advice be, that critical piece?
Get an organizer on your team to be able to organize and advocate and create an environment or atmosphere for your team to be able to thrive. A VI is very important, but have some strong organizers around you.
Thank you. Charles, what do you think? Well, number one thing you'd tell people getting into this work?
I think I would share. I think I would share what Brother Jawan was saying, so I could make it two-part. I think that aspect of what he referred to, but I also think building your structure so that the potential funders will believe that you're credible in terms of the work. Because we do know that a lot of the people that are doing the work don't necessarily, a lot of them are Black and brown. And so over the course of time, nonprofits have been challenged when they get into environments like these. So it's important to build your structure to gain credibility, even just on all the optics, all the pieces, and all the components.
Thank you so much. I think, any of us who have been involved in nonprofit work know how important it is to do the actual work, but also all those pieces that differ so much in terms of getting funding and meeting regulations, and each of those things feeds the other, certainly. So thank you both for sharing that. We are going to organize breakout rooms for people to get into. If you could check the chat really quickly and just for very, very quickly fill out the brief session evaluation, talk about how you have the session has been useful thus far. The link is in the chat. And our tech guru will get the breakout room set up, and you can choose from one of them. And then you can continue these conversations with Zoe, with Charles, and with Erica. And so you may see something in the middle of your screen that says rooms. Can we tell who's who in which room?
I can assign if it's not prompting to join, but it should have
Okay.
prompted to join one of the three.
So if you scroll to the bottom, it should say for Zoe and Force Detroit, Charles with Advanced Peace, Erica with Advanced Peace, and you can just click the button on the right that says join. You can get into a room and continue this conversation. I am seeing people get into those breakout rooms. Please don't forget to do the survey as well.
Hey, Jen, can you put me in I think I said I would do Zoe's room.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if anyone wants to just call out a room, I can assign you over if you need some assistance.
This is Mary Jo. Could you pop me into Dewan's room?
Sure.
This is Kay. Can you put me in Zoe's?
All right. Here you go, Kay.
Kathy Gorley, Dewan's room.
Larry Root, Juan's room.
All right.
You can put me in Charles's room, but you can do other people first if you want. Thank you, thank you.
All right, Stephen. You there? How about you, Jerry? Do you have a preference on room?
Charles, please.
Perfect, thank you.
Hey, Jen, did Katie start to ask me a question?
Did Katie?
Yeah, I felt like I heard my name as I started to swap out rooms.
Oh, no, I didn't hear it.
Okay, cool. All right, I will see you in a little bit then.
All right, I'm gonna stay in here in case somebody pops back in.
Beautiful.
See ya.
Bye.
Still going or so?
All right, welcome back, everyone. We'll give everybody a minute to jump back on here. Looks like, oh, just a few more to join. You know, those breakout rooms sometimes just aren't long enough. You get in a good discussion and then it's over.
So I also think this is mostly one group. The other two groups haven't joined yet. Just to say, Jen.
Thank you for that observation, Katie.
No problem.
There we go.
There we go. There we go.
We just love Jen. She's our baby.
Hey, Erica, sorry we got cut off, but I'm gonna message you privately my email and just thank you again for all your work. I'm really looking forward to connecting.
Yes, thank you. I was just popping my email into you, DM. So
I just want to thank everybody so much for participating in these discussions. I know each of them has been so fruitful, and it is wonderful that you all are connecting with each other. It's so important. It's one of the goals of this group is to make those connections and spread those resources and be an asset for each other. I just, I want to drop the link to the survey in the chat. Give me 1 second to do that. And please make sure to fill that out before you, grab that link before you take off. It really helps us figure out what we should be focusing on next. We have an exciting slate of upcoming talks for you all. We're hoping to be able to go more in depth with this in a follow-up session. In the fall, we're looking forward to tackling a topic that's been very important to people thinking about what's going on in schools. Both of our presenters talked about that to some degree, about working with young people and how important that is. So certainly want to thank everybody for coming. There is a policy conversation on Thursday evening. Jen, oh, thank you so much. And we'll have a deep dive coffee hour on February 28th, where you can go even more in depth with the folks that were here today. There's a legislative update session happening this Thursday. Jen, can you show that slide again? Yeah, on the right, where I'm talking about criminal legal updates. And so that'll be 7 p.m. tomorrow. Please don't forget the link to look at the budget and find out ways to advocate for this kind of work so that it can be continually funded, and so that we don't have piecemeal efforts, $5 here, $5 there, to fund these kinds of efforts that are so clearly important in our communities and so clearly effective. I think that's even more important for legislators to understand, is the effectiveness of these of this work. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Erica. Their contact information can be forwarded to people, but also please come back on the 28th to talk further with them about this work. Thank you all so much for coming.
Welcome. Y'all have a blessing.
Thank you, Lisa.
Have a good one, guys.
Good work, Lise.